live for a special episode of, I don't know, more movie reviews and stuff here. A couple weeks ago, a week and a half ago, I guess, I reviewed Superman, and now I'm back with a brand new guest to talk about Fantastic Four First Steps. Let's get into it, everybody.
Welcome to the Dingus Den.
Anyway, we're alive to talk about Fantastic Four First Steps. Welcome on, Michael. Great to have you here. First-time guest. You're somebody that we've always chatted with a bit, text, but we've never actually verbally spoken with each other. So nice to be able to do that here. We know each other through a couple of mutual friends, Andrew and Cam, and But yeah, nice to have you on here.
Well, I appreciate you letting me come on. It's been a minute. I used to hop on with Cam when he started doing like the weekly reviews. I was hopping on just about every week with that, and just recently I've not had the time to watch the movies that he's been reviewing, so I've just been like, well, damn. Yes, I missed out. I do try to hop in the chat whenever I can, though. So
absolutely, yeah. My scheduling hasn't worked out to be able to join his stuff any recently, but he's a good guy. Go check out Cam and Focus. Absolutely. Yeah. So and I actually want to have him on sometime as well to talk about some comic stuff. We talked a little bit about it, but when we did, he was like right before he was moving, and I know he's now all settled in and all that. But yeah. Point of what we're talking about today is Fantastic Four First Steps. Before we get into that, I just want to just quickly remind and update people of like what's going on with other stuff going on the channel and stuff related. Comic Den on Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. We're doing an episode this Sunday talking about our favorite 10 Doctor Doom stories. And so very topical with what's going on now with Fantastic Four and stuff. Get to that shortly. And then on the Dingus Den Twitch, where I do some gaming stuff every now and then. I'm not consistent with it. But one thing that we are trying to do is we're going to be doing, as I've been doing D&D on there, trying to make that a regular thing with one that I'm hosting. And that's on Monday nights, or at least trying to. And this Monday night, we actually have a special announcement with that. For my main campaign there, Trail of Conspiracy. And so that's something exciting that I have coming up there. And then on Wednesday, I will be joining good friend Ro on Scarif Live, where we're going to be talking about the comic Godzilla vs. Chicago. And sometime maybe during this next week, there may also be an episode of Shell Talk to finish talking about the City at War arc, the original one, and not to be confused with the original one. And so, I've got some exciting stuff coming up. And then after that, Dingus Den will be on a week break because I will be out of town. So, but anyway, here, Fantastic Four First Steps. Before we get into the movie itself, let's kind of get into like generally how we each kind of feel about the MCU. As this is the beginning of Phase 6. Phase 6 is meant to be a big phase for Marvel, because obviously that's when we're next having Spider-Man, but then after that we're having Doomsday and Secret Wars, and this was like the first big movie to set it up. So like, kind of like, what is your general thoughts on the MCU up at this point?
So I have been borderline insanely optimistic. I know there have been a lot of people that have had a lot of issues with the MCU pretty much since No Way Home,
Right.
Which I can totally understand. Not, a lot of the movies, a lot of the projects that Marvel has put out in the last few years have really kind of been hit or miss.
Absolutely.
I know that Thor Love and Thunder is a big one. A lot of people were not happy with that.
Right.
I loved Thor Love and Thunder. I won't go too much into it because that's not what we're here to talk about today. But like, I loved it. I always look at Thor movies as setups. They're always, you look at every Thor movie that's come out, it always sets up a bigger plot line.
That's funny.
You know, the first Thor movie helps to set up Loki as this antagonist that
you are
for
100%
the
right.
Avengers. The second one, The Dark World, helps set up the Infinity Stones.
Right.
The third one helps set up the Endgame and Infinity War.
Right.
So like it makes me wonder, what did Love and Thunder set up? You know, because we have that post credit scene with Natalie Portman going to Valhalla, and like it's great. But I know a lot of people had issues with that movie being over the top and silly and whatnot, and I get it. But I have been very optimistic. I'm like, guys, just keep waiting. It's coming. Something is coming that is going to blow us all away. And I really feel like Fantastic Four First Steps is the first look that we're getting into said thing that is going to blow us away.
Yeah.
And the post-credit scene alone from that movie, or the mid-credit scene, I should say, the mid-credit scene alone from that movie had my entire theater going absolutely nuts. Everybody, I mean, just like that 2-second glimpse. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it
at the very end. Stay tuned, everybody.
End. Yeah. But I mean, people stood, people clapped, people cheered. I whistled. Like it was amazing, and that's why I like going to like early viewings when it's packed full of people.
I must have had a very tame showing because I didn't get any of that at mine. Well, there's maybe like a couple of people you could hear with excitement, but like nothing crazy.
I really wish I would have pulled out my phone for that one moment to just capture it, because it was just it was great. It was great. But yeah, no, Fantastic Four First Steps, absolutely, pun intended, was fantastic.
All right. Before we get into the nitty gritty of the movie, for me, the Marvel has been you described it really well, hit or miss. You know, there's been a lot of people I think are easy to dismiss it too easily, because there is truly some great projects that we've been getting over the few years. But then there's also a lot of stuff that's been coming out that I want to honestly say isn't worth watching. And so, you know, it's definitely been a big mixed bag, and this was the first main movie I feel like to fully lean into. Well, you could argue Thunderbolts is this too, with how they tooled it, but I feel like this is more so the first like big movie to really set up what's next, and really the only one, sadly, of the big pivot of, as we know, King to Doom. And so it's kind of one of those things. I was definitely very optimistic for it. I will be honest, it's one of those movies I wasn't as excited for, because I will say personally, it doesn't help that it was for me directly competing with Superman, and like I have some DC bias, and I'll just keep it at that.
Yeah,
and so,
I can tell.
Right. Right, just a little bit, but but I do love both, though. You know, I've grown up with Marvel, and you know, Iron Man. The first Iron Man movie came out when I was like 5, so you know, I've grown up with the MCU, and something very near and dear to my heart. Ooh, and so it's
made me feel old.
And so it makes me sad to see it not in a great place as it once was, you know, and it's kind of harder for me to get excited about some of the stuff. And I don't want to fully get into like all the stuff surrounding Marvel and all that stuff, but like
we'll be here all night.
Yeah, we'll be here all night if we would talked about all that stuff. But you know, we'll see. Where was I going with that though? But anyway, yeah, Fantastic Four is something I was like, yeah, the trailers look good, and I was definitely looking forward to it. Obviously, I went to go see it, and also like it's become a ritual tradition or whatever you want to call it to go watch everyone as they come out. Like even the ones I'm not so excited for, I've always gone to go Thursday, Friday. You know, like it's the thing. It's in my DNA of growing up as a comic book fan with these movies that I always go see them, and so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But anyway, before we get into the nitty gritty, this is a full-on spoiler review. So anybody that hasn't seen the movie up to this point, please, and don't want to get spoiled on anything if you haven't seen it. As to be fair, it's only been out for a week. Make sure to, you know, click off if you don't want anything to get spoiled. But we are here to delve into everything, and as the top here does say, it does say beware spoilers. So don't say I didn't tell you. But anyway, yeah. So let's get into it. Let's first. Oh my gosh, say hello to everybody. We have WZ in the chat. Welcome on in. We have Matthew Coburn. Welcome in, as well as Smirking Bear. Welcome in, everybody. Matthew's saying mute, but will keep me running. You know what? I appreciate that. I appreciate seeing the extra person tuning in always. But yes, we are delving into everything with this movie. And let's first begin with how the movie opened. I think the movie had a very special opening, not just for a Marvel movie, but a comic book movie.
Oh, absolutely. It was interesting because most Marvel movies, they open with the Marvel, and the comic books scrolling and everything. This movie, it took me a second to realize that the movie had started because it was like it got dark, and the trailers start playing, and then all of a sudden it's you got the old 60s style Marvel logo or whatever, and I went, hang on, wait,
that's different.
I was like, are we in the movie already? What?
Right? Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely took me a second. I was just like, oh, okay, then here we go. We're diving right in.
And I'm trying to remember if this was like the first time where they didn't ever really do their traditional logo of sorts for a movie.
As far as I'm aware, I can't recall. I think even 2000. I can never remember which one came first, Hulk or Iron Man. I want to say it's Iron Man, and then Hulk came out.
Iron Man was
afterwards.
First.
Yeah, I say even Iron Man and Hulk in 2008, had the Marvel logo at the very beginning. It wasn't as detailed, it was just basically like comic book flipping, and then the Marvel logo popped up. It wasn't like how it is now, where it's like showing scenes and stuff from the different movies. But I can't recall a single Marvel movie besides this one where they did not do that.
Yeah. It's really interesting. It took me back to because of how short it was. It was like a quick 5 seconds and it was done. It wasn't anything big special. And so I definitely remember seeing that, and it took me back.
Absolutely.
Bear here says third time is the charm with this Fantastic Four movie. What's funny is there's two ways you could take that, where it's actually technically fourth time's the charm. Because if you count,
there's one from the 90s that never got released,
and you can find it all on YouTube. I started watching it, and then I didn't make it too far. I think it'd be interesting.
It's actually like you can actually find that.
You can find the full thing. I'll send you the link to it after this. Just remind me.
Absolutely. Because I know Stan Lee was quoted saying that like that movie was never meant to be released. It was only made so that they could keep the rights. To the property. So the fact that there's actually like a way to watch this movie, I have to see it.
Yeah, I need to fully watch it myself. But yeah, it's not in a great quality, but like, it's in your classic 90s 4:3 ratio, and it's interesting. It's cool that it's all there. I started watching it and I was like, that's interesting. I didn't stop it because of disinterest. I think I just got distracted with something and then didn't get back to it. And so
fair enough.
But yeah. But then the other way you could take it is, not only is this the fourth iteration of Fantastic Four on screen in some way, but it's also the fourth movie that actually got released, because one of those Fantastic Four movies actually did get a sequel. Yeah,
with their very own Silver Surfer and Galactus. We'll pretend like Galactus was actually in that movie and not just a giant space fart.
Right. Yeah.
I remember even as a kid, growing up, I did not read comic books like that. I had a few. I had like a Justice League comic that was like halfway through the run. Like it was like the middle entry into a run or whatever. Most of the comics I read growing up were like Archie comics. Those were the kind of comics that I enjoyed. But even I knew who the hell Galactus was going into that Rise of the Silver Surfer.
Oh yeah.
And like I just remember being like, what? Like that's not right.
Yeah. But we're not here to talk about that, thankfully. No. But what I want to specifically highlight about this opening though is we got this big I was taken back by how the first actual scene was. I wasn't expecting that to be the first scene of what we got with Sue, and finding out, she's getting a baby. And I kind of found that really weird.
I kind of thought that was going to happen later. So this is my expectation going in. How I thought it was going to start based on how the trailers presented themselves and all the like insider leaks that I had read up on. My thought was that it was going to open up with the Ted Gilbert show, and then and then it was going to show like Mole Man attacking or something, and they were going to have to leave the Ted Gilbert show to go fight something. That was how I thought it was going to start. And then maybe in like the second or third scene after that, they find out that she's pregnant.
Yeah.
And that's another thing too. Actually, now that I think about it, something they never showed in the movie that was in the trailers was them doing the whole tour of like, every Sunday, 7 p.m. That was not in the movie. And I'm just now realizing that.
That is so an important point, is there's actually a lot they cut out with this movie.
Yeah.
Because the original cut of this movie, or the last rumored cut runtime, was like 20 minutes, around 20 minutes longer than what we actually got, which is interesting. And we got something cut. There's actually a big character cut, and that's actually in the big montage that I was wanting to get to about talking about with, I love that whole sort of way that they introduce the team and all that, and you see all the different sort of like things they're involved with. We also get a really nice feel of like what the city is or the town is that they're in, of this retro style New York, which is like such a perfect vibe for Fantastic Four.
Absolutely.
It was one of those ideas when I heard about it at first. I was like, this is what they're doing. I don't know, sir. I'm not so sure about this. And then when you actually like see it, it's like, oh,
that retro futuristic.
It works.
Like it worked really well. One of my favorite things that they did in this movie, and they did touch on it in the first iteration of Fantastic Four. I love how they flesh out Ben Grimm as a character.
Yeah.
They did a really good job without having to go into like the whole backstory of how the Fantastic, like they touched on it, but they didn't really.
Yeah.
But like the fact that, I mean, if you're a fan of Fantastic Four in any regards, you know that in some sense, Ben Grimm struggles with like his image, like how he looks since the whole, becoming the Thing. And they didn't really show that they didn't really say that, but they did a fantastic job of showing it. The whole where he's watching the old interviews where it's like, best pilot in the world right here. He's like, best looking, he means. And then it's like, it cuts to him as the Thing now.
Oh yeah.
And then the whole, he lifted the car up for the kids.
Yes.
And then he meets the teacher. I can't remember her name off the top of my head.
Me neither.
But he meets the teacher, and she's very obviously like flirting with him, and kind of flirting back. But then he's like, it's almost like he doesn't know whether or not he should like try and pursue it because of how he looks.
Right.
But it's never explicitly said. But just they did a I keep saying fantastic. I'm going to try not to do that. They did a really good job of showing, not telling. And that I feel has made all the difference in the world. Like Johnny giving Ben shit all the time. Like that is just peak Fantastic Four. Johnny Storm giving Ben Grimm shit for how he looks.
Yeah.
Or busting Bustin' Reed's chops, like, oh, you're gonna be an excellent father. Just kidding, you're in over your head, but we're gonna be the best uncles ever. That's such. I was so when I found out that they cast Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm. I did a happy dance because I love Joseph Quinn from Stranger Things. He did a fantastic job,
absolutely,
as Eddie, and when I found out that he was getting to do something as big as an MCU movie almost immediately after, because if I remember right, I think Joseph Quinn's like kind of big break was Stranger Things. I think everything before that was kind of like very small roles, and it's like, he got his big break in Stranger Things. And let me rephrase that. That's where I found out about
I think that is.
I think that's where
most people
right. So like that's where he got a lot of his popularity from, and then to go from Stranger Things, which in and of itself is an accomplishment. I mean, that's one of the biggest IPs that Netflix has, if not the biggest IP that they have.
Yeah.
And to go from one of, if not the biggest IP that Netflix has, to one of the most anticipated Marvel movies of the last 5 years at least, I would say that's a pretty big accomplishment. And so I was
Absolutely.
very happy to see that he was getting that opportunity.
Mhm.
And I was really glad that they cast him, because I feel like he really embodies that, like,
Mhm.
that full of shit character. Like, he's
Yeah.
very, you know, and again, showing not telling. I feel like, okay, Chris Evans, Johnny Storm, same thing. He was really good at the whole, like, full of shit, bullshit, and busting chops, and but they didn't really show. I mean, from what I can remember anyway, that was his whole personality, was like being a womanizer, and which again is part of who he is. But there's a reason that Johnny Storm was on that rocket in the first place.
Right.
Johnny Storm is a smart, very, very smart individual. And I feel like the last few iterations have not really given him that opportunity to shine in that way. Because yes,
Sure.
Reed Richards is supposed to be the smartest man in the world, but that doesn't mean he's the only smart person in the room. And that was the dynamic between Reed Richards and Johnny Storm in this movie. I found it to be very, very real, very raw.
Yeah. Sure.
Because Reed is
Yeah.
supposed to be the smartest man in the world, but now he can't figure out what to do. Meanwhile, Johnny's over here decrypting an alien language from one line that he was told by Shalabal
Yeah.
on Tatu.
Absolutely.
One line, and he takes and decrypts an entire alien
Yes.
language.
They definitely
They
did
such a great
did
job.
him really good.
They did.
Yeah, I was really happy with how they did everybody for the most part. There's one thing that I kind of had a problem with one of the characters, but we'll get into that near closer to the end. But
Okay.
what makes Fantastic Four really work, though, and you were touching on this a bit, is their interactions with each other, making them actually feel like a family, and how they all come together. And so really having they really had good chemistry, better so than all the previous iterations. And so it just really worked. And you had those important scenes with them all together. And there's certain parts where it's just I remember reading a scene like this from the comics, but now it's on screen, and it just perfectly encapsulates how Fantastic Four is a family and their interactions with each other. It felt completely spot on to me as far as all that goes.
I will say there was one moment in the movie where I went, that felt weird. It was the scene where they're discussing their options on how to fight Galactus, how to beat him.
Sure.
And there's that split moment where Reed's like, yeah, I've thought about it. I've thought about giving him Franklin. The thought crossed my mind. And Sue, understandably, gets upset and storms out of the room. Again, no pun intended. But yeah, she walks out of the room all angry, and then literally it cuts to the next scene, and she walks up to him and puts her arms around him. I'm like, that was a weird transition. She went from being like, how dare you even consider giving this man our child,
Sure.
and I understand what you're going through. I was like, what? That was the one moment in the movie where I went, that's a little that pacing was a little weird, but
yeah, I was about to say, I won't say either of those moments are out of character, but for it to go
from
there,
0 to 100 real quick.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
Bear makes a comment saying, did Johnny send a sexy message in that alien language? That's what he did afterwards, the moment credits started rolling. And welcome in, Nicole. She's just dropping in to say hi. She has some other stuff to do, but we appreciate you coming by. But yes, something else that I wanted to touch on, and you touched on this a bit earlier with the Thing. The Thing was great. I loved how all the stuff we got with him. But you talked about his love interest, and I'm not sure, is his love interest from the comics anybody that you're familiar with at all?
So I do vaguely remember. Again, I didn't really read the comics a whole lot growing up. I had a few comics, but I grew up I grew up in the Bahamas, and so we didn't have comic book stores where I grew up. So like if I wanted to read a comic book, I'd have to fly, I'd come to Florida, and you'd be in like the checkout line at Walmart, and there's an Archie Comics, right at the checkout. That was how I got my comic books, because that was the cheap, affordable way to do it. I didn't step into a comic book store until I was 19 years old and in college. So I did not grow up with the comic books like a lot of the other people, like in the group chat have. But I do remember from the first run of the Fantastic Four with like Jessica Alba as Invisible Woman and Chris Evans. I do remember in the second one where I believe it was Ben getting married. And I remember there's a scene where like Johnny is busting Ben's chops and was like, so how does it work between you two when you want to, and Ben's like, that's none of your business, and like starts beating the crap out of him, or trying to anyway. So I do remember that he has a love interest.
Right.
I couldn't tell you her name.
Fair enough.
Well,
her name is.
I know that she's doing some real good charity work going after that mug. But no, okay. We love Ben.
What makes it interesting and is in the comics, her name is Alicia Masters. Alicia, what makes her special and their love dynamic very interesting is that she's blind, and so there's this whole thing where he doesn't, she really only knows him from the ways he'd touch her, but mainly his voice. And so it makes this really interesting dynamic where they really focus on part of the thing in the comics is that he's a monster. And so it's a really interesting love dynamic there, since she can't actually see him.
Right.
But the reason I brought that up,
I feel like she knows he's covered in rocks, though.
Like she learns things as things go on.
He caresses her cheek, and there's just like she just like skinned her cheek a little bit. She's got a little road rash.
But
bad.
What I found interesting though is, even though she obviously wasn't that and was a different name in the movie or whatever, the love interest, I felt like the qualities of them were very much the same. Like even the hairstyle, like remind me of like I looked at her and I was like, "Is that Alicia?" No, but interesting. And so it does make me curious if they were going to do that later on once post Secret Wars, and they decide to revisit Fantastic Four. If they decide to revisit Fantastic Four, we'll see. But yeah, that's just one of the things I want to point out. But yes, Thing, Human Torch, they were both great characters. They had an interesting. I liked that you actually did get to see a bit of their special dynamic between the two of those, which I think is one of those special things of them always bickering back and forth. But what I felt was even bigger in this movie was, obviously, we have the main focus of Franklin, so we got an even bigger focus, I felt like, with Mr. Fantastic and Sue Storm, Invisible Woman there, and their relationship was great all the way through. How did you feel about Pedro as Mr. Fantastic? Because I know a lot of people weren't, were very iffy on it. That was one of those things I was iffy on before seeing it.
I love Pedro Pascal as an actor. I think he does I think anything he touches turns to gold. Not necessarily just because it's him. Like, I know there are a lot of people that are like, "Oh, this actor, everything he does," and it's because it's the actor. But Pedro Pascal literally he does such a great job. He understands the assignment.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing about the depiction of Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, in this film is that he doesn't have all the answers. He may be the smartest man in the world. That doesn't mean he has all the answers. And he actively panics throughout this movie because he does not have the answers and because he cannot see the solution. And it's a very primal, very realistic feeling, because you can be the smartest person ever, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have all the answers. And I feel like it's even more so true for somebody as smart as Reed Richards to be panicking when he doesn't have the answer. Like if I don't have the answer, then who could possibly have the answer? And I know there were some people that said that they did not like the solution that they came up with for fighting Galactus. I found it hysterical. Not necessarily their solution, but just the amount of people who watched the trailers with seeing that image of Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, holding that pole and stretching out. And people are like, what is this? Is this the I forget the device, whatever it was that they used in the comics to scare Galactus off?
The ultimate nullifier,
yes, the ultimate nullifier. They're like, is this version? Is this the MCU's version of the ultimate nullifier? It's like, no, he literally just ripped an antenna off of a radio antenna off of a building and was like stabbing it into his back or something. It was just like, it was just the most random thing, and there were so many. It was just that I feel like it was an intentional troll. Like Kevin Feige was like, let's give them this and make them think it's important.
Yeah.
And it absolutely was not. And I remember sitting in the theater going, well, I'll be damned.
That was funny.
Yeah.
Bear here saying that he was iffy at first, but the last couple of trailers for this movie sold me more on Mr. Fantastic. Absolutely. I would agree with that sentiment. And I was pleasantly surprised about how well he actually did pull off the role at the end. And so just saying all of them played a very, I think, good job of all their characters and actually having that dynamic that really matters. Actually having Franklin there as well, which is an interesting aspect never seen before on screen, that really worked as well. And, it's a great, message overall with the movie and how it all fits together with Franklin there, which I really enjoyed. I was listening to some people talk about this yesterday, and I really like the way one of them put it, which is interesting. And I don't want to steal too much of what this person was saying about it, but I really like the way he put that this movie was a very he described it as a pro-life movie. You don't see a bunch of movies necessarily very advocating that just life is good, and seeing this sort of idea of families grow like this and that everything's very positive, I guess. And so it was a very it was really good. I really liked how all that stuff put together.
Yeah absolutely. I very much like it was one of those movies where like there's two sides of the argument of whether or not whether or not the Fantastic Four should agree to give Galactus Franklin. Like, on the one hand, the people are not wrong necessarily. They're like, if giving this one person saves the rest of us, yeah. But you also have to, something that Sue said in the movie was, basically like, I can't remember the exact words, but it's when she goes outside with Franklin, she's like, basically, look at this child that you want me to sacrifice to this.
Sure.
And it was very much like, what if it was your child? Would you give up your child for the world? And very quickly people realize like, oh wait, no, she has a point. And also I think it's very, they could have gave Franklin to Galactus and maybe he wouldn't have ate them that day, but
I feel like Galactus is one of those characters you can only appease for so long before he comes back, and that's how it's shown in the comics.
Well, and also the other thing too is, especially with them already establishing the Eternals and like the Celestials in the Earth, isn't one of like the reasons that Galactus eats certain planets is because they're celestial seeds, and so he's trying to prevent the Celestials from like rising up or something? I know in one comic run that's like the case, like that's how the planets get chosen.
That's interesting because I don't remember that right offhand from what I've read of Galactus. There's a bunch of Galactus stuff I haven't read, but and it wouldn't surprise me if that's the case. It also begs the question if there's a Celestial exactly on every planet as well. across the multiverse per se.
Right, in every
It's very
Earth.
celestial in every
Yeah.
Earth, exactly, which would be very
It would
interesting.
be, I feel like that could be a constant because, like,
I could see that. Yeah.
if I remember right, again, I didn't grow up reading the comics, but if I remember right, the reason the Celestials are put into, or like the seeds, whatever they call them, are put into the planets that they are, is because that planet can sustain a certain level of life for that to feed off of, or a certain level of
I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm gonna have to look into that.
yeah.
That wouldn't surprise me. It sounds like something the Celestials would do. I remember initially the whole thing with Galactus is that he wants to. It's all about energy and sustaining himself, as he's this very special being, where he comes
Right.
from the universe prior to the regular one,
Right.
which is
Right.
really interesting. But
He comes from the, what is it? They call it like the 6th iteration of the universe or something like that.
I don't remember the name, but
It's
sure.
something. It's like, yeah, it's like basically
something.
it's like he somehow is the only survivor of the heat death of his universe, and now he consumes planets.
Essentially, yes.
Like
all you need to know about Galactus in a nutshell, right there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and he sometimes takes the form of a giant space fart.
Apparently, and
Apparently.
the multiverse we don't talk about. Who knows?
Uh,
Something that I don't know if you caught on, since I'm thinking of it, is they called this multiverse Universe 828.
Mhm.
Which, do you know what that's the reference to?
That is a reference to Jack Kirby's date of birth.
That is.
He was
And
born August 28th.
Yes.
They actually showed that at the end of the movie, I believe. They did. They did. They showed like they showed like 828, and then it was like Jack Kirby, and then it split 828 into 8/28/ whatever the year
you're
was.
right. I forgot.
It's
You're
right at the
right.
very end. I think it's right after that mid-credit scene or right before the credits start rolling. It's somewhere like right as the movie's ending.
Yeah.
And I do remember that. Yeah.
That's great. That was great. And what I loved too was the very final bit before you get into the or maybe it's right. I don't remember where, but I don't remember if it was right before or right after the end credits, but you also get the Jack Kirby quote. And I was like, that's amazing that they included that.
Yeah.
So I did.
I think that was actually, I think that was all the same thing. It was like the Jack Kirby quote, and then it showed like 828, and then it split it up into Jack Kirby 828, whatever,
I could
whatever.
see that. But yeah, that was great though. I love that they went that extra little bit to honor Jack Kirby.
Absolutely, because like Stan Lee, admittedly, I mean, rightfully so, gets a lot of credit. Jack Kirby, not as much.
That is the sad thing, is there's so many people I've talked to that just credit Stan Lee with everything with Marvel, where it's like, no, at the very least, he's responsible for half of everything.
Right.
Because back then, it was always, well, you have the writer, and then you have somebody else doing the art.
Right.
And Stan Lee certainly was an artist, at least in the way of, drawing stuff.
Right.
He did a great job writing a bunch of this stuff and coming up with a bunch of ideas. One of the things I actually found very interesting with Doctor Doom, I'm going to bring us down this little interesting side path.
In general, or like in the MCU?
Doctor Doom, with his creation of what Kirby and Stan Lee actually disagreed about.
Okay.
And this is actually one of the things that I really liked Kirby's point of view more of. Stan Lee's point of view is under Doctor Doom's mask. He's this very burnt up, scarred face, that's all messed up.
Right. Very Anakin Skywalker post Mustafar.
Sure. Yes, exactly. Good way to put it there. But then the other thing, and I really like Jack Kirby's vision of it.
I know where you're going with this, and I do too.
Was that he just has one scar,
one little scar, but his pride is so great that
he's a perfectionist, is what it is.
I love that.
I love that too, and that's what I would kind of personally wish. That's what they kind of went with. Is like, I love that idea with Doom.
I hope so too.
And so,
especially with them having Robert Downey Jr. play Doom, it would make one of the biggest things that irks me about, since they announced Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom, is people making the assumption that it's Iron Man, that it's Tony Stark, and that it's some alternate universe where he survived the snap and it drove him nuts, and like that now he's Doom. No, that's not. If that's
Yeah.
what they do, I swear to God, I will never see another Marvel movie
You know,
ever again.
you know what? Let's go ahead. I was going to save the Doctor Doom stuff for last, but let's go ahead and delve into it since we're already talking all about it. Okay,
Okay.
Doctor Doom. You were brought up those people, saying that he's Iron Man and blah blah blah. And to me, I was sold on the fact until this movie, and I will eat my words on this that I was wrong, but I was sold that Doctor Doom was going to be one of those Iron Man people, because we're talking about a time where the MCU is introducing certain big aspects, and one of these big aspects being variants. There's people that are different across the multiverse, different versions of characters. So to me, I was like, okay, this Robert Downey Jr., don't get me wrong, I love the guy Robert Downey Jr. He does some great roles. I mean, obviously Iron Man's great, but then we've seen other great stuff, and he did a great job as a completely different kind of character in Oppenheimer. But
Tropic Thunder. That's all you got to say.
That's a good example too. But I was one of those people. I was like, there's so many other. I felt personally. Obviously, we'll see how it turns out once Doomsday comes out. But I felt like there's so many better actors you could have had for the role of Doctor Doom. And when you have Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, or known for being Iron Man for 10 movies exactly, I think.
Probably, yeah.
I found it interesting that they went with that casting choice. And so going back to what I was talking about with the MCU and variants and all that stuff, I was just like, it just made sense to me that this is the narrative that the MCU is going with, that they're doing this alternate sort of Iron Man and all that. And I was like, I don't like it. I don't like what it is doing at all. And I was like, yeah, I'd still watch this stuff. But like, I don't like it. Welcome in, Ro. What's up? Welcome in. But anyway, I think it's safe to say that's definitely not the case, as we actually see that this Doom is from this Earth, and we actually do get some hints of him even before the post-credit scene.
I will say the one argument for a variant Tony Stark being Doctor Doom that I have seen that I was like, I could be okay with that, was that somehow, some way, Victor and Tony got like mixed up at birth or something like that, and Tony actually went to go live in Latveria.
Yeah, that
I would almost be okay with that. Almost.
Yeah, there's just a bunch of weird.
That would be the one where I'd be like, okay, it's different enough that I could be okay with it. However, if it's the whole, he's Tony Stark survived the snap as Tony Stark, and instead of dying, he turns into Doctor Doom. Marvel, if you ever watch this,
don't do that.
Please don't.
Yeah, but I think it's safe to say that it looks like at least this main Doctor Doom, if they're going to do multiple, I don't know, but I think it looks to be like we're not getting that though, as it did set up him to a degree to be from this Earth, which is good. Yeah, and I was happy to see that. And so then it's just like, oh, they just chose Robert Downey Jr. again for whatever reason. So
I do think that they do have a deeper meaning behind it. I think part of it is Robert Downey Jr. carried the MCU for 10 years. Like it's no secret.
I do think it's a big money thing of just trying to get fans back on board, or people in general back on board, right? As we've been talking about, this is a very rocky thing, and so it definitely is, I think at the end of the day, just a big move of let's try to get butts in seats, and they're trying to do every trick that they can.
Absolutely. Yeah. But the Russos also have said that it had to be Robert Downey Jr. It had to be. Why does it have to be? What is it? What are they planning? What are they planning that it has to be Robert Downey Jr.? And the only thing I can think of is the deception of, oh my God, it's Tony Stark.
Yeah, but then it would just be weird of like variants of Tony and Doom are the same. I don't know. We'll see.
Right.
We'll see. Only time will tell on that. There's a lot of questions, and that's obviously what's going to make a lot of people come, go watch the movie, and that's obviously what they want. All this talk. There's that phrase, bad press is good press. So any sort of press that there or any talk is always a good thing for him. So
Yep.
we'll see what happens.
There's no such thing as bad publicity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
One thing that I really like, though, that was really interesting, was, or that I just was reading about, and I didn't even think about this, and it would actually, it goes along a point that you mentioned about Dr. Dim a few minutes ago, about Robert Downey Jr. showing his face a lot, is that that in that post-credit scene when we actually see Doom, that we see Franklin up there touching his face, and this is probably how his face would get fixed. And I was like, oh, why didn't I think of this? Because you actually see his hand reaching up there, and his mask is off. And for the 2 seconds you can tell there, it's crazy how quick that was too. It's like I almost felt that was too quick,
Yeah,
because it's like you can tell me, like even then, I'm trying to look at the mask, and like even then, from what the pictures I'm seeing of the mask, I feel like is a little too sleek. Obviously, we'll see once we actually get a better photo, and B, him actually wearing the mask. But
yeah,
we'll see though. But that's definitely what I felt like.
Yeah, no, definitely. Going into the movie, I fully expected that post-credit scene.
Yeah, 100%.
I had heard, I had heard a leak that was going to be the post-credit scene. So I went into it fully expecting that. I sat in that movie theater until the projector actually turned off. Like I did not leave that theater until it turned off, just in case. And I do that with every MCU movie, but I remember when the scene started, because it was one of those things. It was a leak, right? So maybe it might have been true, it might have not been. So there's a very good possibility that the post-credit scene was going to be something to do with Thunderbolts, like how the Thunderbolts post-credit scene showed the Fantastic Four ship, a different Fantastic Four ship, mind you, which now that I've seen the movie makes sense, because the first ship pretty much got ruined going to Tatu.
Yeah.
Or coming back from Tatu, I should say, and having to fly past that black hole
on the journey. Yeah.
That, and just to touch on that a little bit, I don't know if you remember when they did like screen tests for that scene, and like people were describing it on the internet and like saying about how great the CGI was, and like they were not wrong. The CGI was mind-blowing.
It was some great CG, not just for Marvel movies, but some in general. There was great CG throughout pretty much the whole thing. Like they even made Galactus look fantastic. And Galactus within himself is very silly idea of being a giant guy.
Right. Well, and I really like the fact that they use as much practical effects as they could as well.
Yes.
The scenes with him like stomping through the city, and like you can see like the individual things shaking, and like that was all done. Well, at least 90% of it was done with practical effects.
They did a really
like a miniature city, and they just like had the actor, I can't remember the actor's name who played
Ralph Ineson.
Yeah. They basically were just like, hey, go stomp around this miniature city. And all I could think about was he had to feel like Stitch, like, like stomping through this miniature city.
Right. That's funny.
I really loved that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, so I really, because especially MCU has relied so heavily on CGI and computer graphics in general, and like sound stages, and it really, I feel like, takes away from the movie going experience. Obviously you have some movies like, say, Multiverse of Madness, where practical effects are not going to be easy to pull off for some of the things that they had to do with that movie,
right?
So CGI obviously has its place, and I'm not knocking that. But I love it when, especially a big movie, a big film studio like Marvel, one as big as Marvel, that has the money to throw CGI at everything.
Yeah.
They take a step back and they go, but what if we built a miniature city and make it look realistic.
They
Like,
did,
what if-
yeah.
and I feel like they did a really, really great job of incorporating practical effects with the CGI and making it mesh
yeah.
together well. I think this movie did a really great job in a technical aspect.
They built some big like practical sets as well for the like just where they were at in the city as well. Like I know one place in particular I remember seeing a video of, I think, was right outside the, what's it called, the Gilbert show. And
Mhm.
so right when they step out there and there's that whole scene where they like get in the car or whatever, like that
Yeah.
like that part of the city they completely built up
Oh, okay.
practically, which is really cool.
That's actually, yeah, that's really cool, because especially with a big, city thing, like you would
Yeah.
imagine that they did that on a soundstage with green screen, but that's really cool to know that they put
Yeah.
more into it than that.
Yeah, when I saw the behind the scenes thing of, I don't remember where I saw it, but I remember when I saw it, I was like, I was surprised to see that they went that extra mile for that. And so that was really cool. But yeah, they did a lot of great, put a lot of great effort into this movie. I love the space journey and I love the sci-fi aspects of it.
Yeah.
For me, I'm huge into this cosmos, the cosmic side of the Marvel universe, and so I always love the space stuff. And so getting to see them actually do it, seeing the stuff with Shia LaBeouf was cool.
And I was really glad that they actually named her in the movie.
Yeah.
And the way that they did it was, she didn't introduce herself. They never actually call her Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
They never call her the Silver Surfer, which makes sense, because why would they? Unless she introduced herself as the Silver Surfer, why would they call her the Surfer?
That's
true. They call her the Surfer. And it's not until Johnny translates her language and like figures out her story from these messages that they've picked up throughout the cosmos, that we finally get her name, Shia LaBeouf. And you see that him naming her has an effect on her. And I really believe that contributed to the ending that we got, because I really thought that we were about to see the end of Johnny Storm already in that movie. There's that at the very end. He's like, tell Franklin his Uncle Johnny loves him. He starts flying towards Galactus like he's gonna push him through the portal. And I'm just like, no, we just got him. Joseph Quinn cannot die this early. No. And then Shia LaBeouf just comes out of nowhere and basically like body slams him away with the surfboard, and then she flies into him and they both go together. And it was very poetic, because not only did she basically betray Galactus in doing so, she also banished herself with him. So then his fury at the betrayal is going to be immediate, and it's going to be harsh. Like, I don't see us seeing Shia LaBeouf again. Not that version of her anyway.
Sure. It's interesting how you put that in, because that's actually I have a big problem with the movie, and I'll delve into it in a moment. And it does have to do with Shia LaBeouf and the end stuff there.
Okay.
But before I get into that, because I did really like the movie at all, I don't want to in a moment feel like I'm tearing it all apart. But I do want to talk about Shia LaBeouf generally, though, because he brought up a good point of like how they introduced her. Even though she was definitely a surfer, they didn't make it seem like she was the Silver Surfer. You know. And so, they did a good way to distinct her, I think, from the normal Norrin Rad, as everybody knows. And I think that was important. And that was one of my big problems going into the movie. The biggest thing I was concerned about was how, if they're doing Shia LaBeouf, where would they do Norrin Rad later? Because they said they intentionally didn't do Norrin Rad because they wanted to save him. And for like a bigger role to give him the proper due that he should be given, which that I can understand. But then, if you remember, there was also rumors though that Galactus would win and the universe could be destroyed and blah blah blah. And that's part of what I thought was going to kind of happen, because of the rumors of if Tony Stark, Iron Man, Doctor Doom that we talked about earlier was the case,
Right.
he'd be from another one coming in and be starting to story, and then the TVA would, save them and blah blah blah. Obviously that's not the story we got, but from rumors and stuff I heard, I was thinking, is that where things are going? Obviously not. And so going into the movie, though, it kind of led me to being like, I don't kind of know like how they're doing the Silver Surfer thing, because there's also the rumor, and we never got any word on this either, is if there's only ever one Galactus in the entire multiverse, because that was a big rumor going into it, and that never got touched on. It currently could still be the case, as their universe is still alive.
I believe that's actually like a comic book thing, is where it's like there's only like America Chavez. There's only one America Chavez.
There is multiples. There was one, actually, the last comic me and Steve on the Comic Den just reviewed actually did have another Galactus in it. So there's not just one.
Okay.
So I could see it being multiple, and maybe there is actually one out there in the regular 616. I don't like the Marvel Universe, actually, or MCU has that as one, and not just, I don't like that they took the comic number, but that's just the thing that's bugged me. But anyway.
Right. Now that I'm thinking about it, now that you said about like Norrin Rad and whatnot, I don't know how they would do that, because I feel like at this point, having Galactus as a threat in the 616 would feel cheap at this point.
See, maybe. See, that's the thing, though. Well, here's the thing, though, is at the end of the day, Secret Wars is going to be a reset that I think will ultimately combine a bunch of stuff together.
Yeah.
So Galactus, I think that's going to be the vessel to bring in Galactus in the main way, in the main universe. So we'll see about that.
It could be. I wonder how they would do it, because I know that after Secret Wars, the plan is to go into the mutant saga.
Well, that doesn't mean that there will only be mutants, though.
No, I'm just saying, like, if the focus is mutants, do they want to throw Galactus in there? But the other thing,
I see what you're saying, yeah.
The other thing, too, is, like, I'm curious to see, I mean, this is going way off topic, but I'm curious to see what they do with the mutant saga, because, like, we've seen Magneto. Like, Magneto has, like, don't get me wrong, I love Serene McKellen's Magneto. I love Michael Fassbender's Magneto.
Yeah.
But Magneto's been done.
Right.
And I really, as much as I love the character, I don't know if I would want them to go into the mutant saga with it being, Professor X and the X-Men versus Magneto and his band of mutants. And, like, I feel like it's been done to death.
Yeah.
But then what do you do? Because they've also touched on oh God, what was his name? Peter Dinklage plays him in
Trapped.
Yes, they've touched on him and his Sentinels, which I feel like. So the only villain off the top of my head that comes from the mutants that I could see them doing that's not really been touched on is oh no, I'm blanking.
So the one that I've heard that I hope they do is Mr. Sinister.
Yes, Mr. Sinister.
There we go. That's
I was literally about to be like, he was in X-Men 97.
Yeah, Mr. Sinister. I would love for him to do that. Or even if they could do a proper Apocalypse. Obviously, you wouldn't want that for your first movie. But don't give us the garbage we got in Apocalypse, but an actually good one.
I would say that if we could get in the first, I don't want to say phase, because the way Marvel does phases, but like in the first act of the mutant saga, if it sets up Magneto as the villain, but then it's like almost like how Loki was supposed to be the villain, and then it's like, no, it's actually Thanos is the villain. So if they did like Magneto's the villain, but no, it's actually Mr. Sinister, or it's actually,
I would love for him to set up Apocalypse.
Yeah,
I think he'd be a really cool one to set up. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else I'd really want. I know there's a lot of rumors about stuff they were going to do in X-Men 97, and then they completely changed parts of it, which sucks. But we're not here to talk about that.
We're getting way off topic.
Yeah. Anyway, well, let's bring it back. Fantastic Four. But yeah, we were talking about Shia LaBeouf and the Surfers stuff and all that. So I was pleasantly surprised with how much I actually liked her. and how they actually did her, rather than one thing at the end, which I'll get to in a moment. But before we get to that, let's talk about Galactus.
Okay.
How did you feel about Galactus?
I was very pleased with how he looked. I
He
loved
looked fantastic.
the attention to detail, the little details like on his helmet and
Yeah.
everything. Fantastic. I made it a point before going to the movie to not try and find any image, because they for a long time they did not show his face. They did not show his face.
That was brilliant marketing. Let's be honest about them saving the full reveal for Galactus on the big screen.
And what a reveal it was, because it's like it was very much, I remember thinking this in the theater. Did you ever read the Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini? Aragon and
No, I have not.
No. In that it's a fantastic, if you like fantasy, which you mentioned earlier that you run a D&D campaign. So
yes, absolutely.
I imagine you like fantasy.
Yes, just a little bit.
Absolutely give those a read sometime, because it's it's high fantasy. It's dragon riders and dragons and elves and very, very like a modern day Middle Earth almost.
Yeah.
There's a lot of politics that happen in it. It's fantastic. But one thing that happens is like in the last scene of the series, when they finally confront the evil king and his dragon, they're in the throne room. Mm-hmm. And they notice that there are these giant curtains that surround the throne room. Mm-hmm. And there's a tapestry behind the wall. And then the tapestry shifts. And they realize it's not a tapestry. Those aren't curtains. Those are the dragon's wings. That is the dragon's body. It is so massive that you cannot... Its tail looked about the size of one of the other dragon's entire body. Like, it's so massive that the scope of it all cannot be taken in one field of view. Like, you have to that was, I felt the same way with Galactus, because it's like they're in Tatu or on Tatu, whatever, and they're walking through the ship, and Shalabal is leading them to Galactus, and Johnny, he's being Johnny, and he's being a little flirty, and he's like, "So the surfboard, is that part of your body?" Or and
I thought that was a recurring thing too,
right? and then it's like all of a sudden they stop, and then they look up, and then there's just these big purple eyes, just boom. And you get the scope of it all at once, and they start freaking out, and they're like, "What the hell is that?"
That was a fantastic way to introduce the main villain.
I was like, when his eyes started shining, glowing like that, and it was just like, and it's chills, chills, because it's very much like, if you go back to like Call of Cthulhu, the whole cosmic horrors beyond mankind's comprehension. That is absolutely what Galactus is. He's a cosmic horror beyond, like, how does the human mind comprehend a being so large that he can eat planets? Mind you, yes, the typical way that he does that is through, his ship, grinding down the raw materials and turning it into energy and what. But he's been known to literally just eat a planet. And I love it. I love the whole trope of cosmic horrors beyond human understanding. It's fantastic, and I think they did a really good job of portraying that. In this movie.
Yeah, I would say for the most part they did. That his introduction, I think, is my favorite Galactus bit in the whole movie.
Oh yeah,
it was so good. But then we actually got to see him, and I feel like that was an accurate size for Galactus when you actually see him all walking around and all that, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to go back to your point that you were talking about earlier with the teleporters, is I didn't mind that either, because at the end of the day, even though it's a different kind of plot device, I felt like those teleporters served as the exact same plot device of sorts as the Ultimate Nullifier, At the end of the day,
I actually like the fact that they did the teleporters more than if they would have done the Ultimate Nullifier, because the ultimate nullifier is not something that Reed Richards comes up with.
You're correct. Yeah.
That's something that is given to him by somebody else.
Well, how
And
it happened.
they don't actually use it. They're just like, we got the thing. We've got the thing.
Yes.
You better not do the thing
Yes.
you're going to do. And Galactus like runs away like a little girl, you know? And and so like I'm really glad that they made Galactus put up a fight. Galactus. And they knew he was going to put up a fight, and they had to come up with a way to get the people out of the city in a quick manner, because like evacuating the city was not going to work. And I love how they did what they did, because they set up Mole Man and Subterranea very early on in the movie. And they set up that diplomatic solution that they came up with, which then domino affected into, hey, we need a favor. We need to have all these people taken somewhere safe. And I really love the antagonistic relationship between Reed Richards and Mole Man.
Yeah, let's delve into that for a moment. We'll get back to Galactus here in a moment. But since you brought up Mole Man, this is a funny casting. I don't remember his name, but it fit for it. It was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I was one of the things I kind of wish we could have seen more of was some more of that underground city. Obviously, that wasn't the purpose of the movie, and I understand that fully.
Right, but it would have been nice if we could have seen, like, what I would have loved to have seen was like, picture like in the Harry Potter universe, like the Ministry of Magic, right? There's just this massive underground building that like it's huge, it's massive, it's the scale of it is just unbelievable. I wish we could have seen something maybe not as clean and pristine as like the Ministry of Magic is portrayed, but just something just like a large citadel underground. Like I would have loved to have seen that.
I like the way we did it. Just thing for me, and I'll be honest, a lot of my like problems with it is just because of how much I am into the comics, and this is the things that it didn't really bug me, but it was like it would have been nice to see is that Mole Man's known for leading like all these monsters and stuff, and we didn't really see any of that.
Yeah, because the movie did portray Mole Man as just being kind of like this weirdo who likes living underground.
It's more like what are they called? There's this other section of mutants that lives in like the sewers for a bit when they first find them.
Teenage
in X-Men,
not
Teenage Mutant, no, but in X-Men, there's these special mutants for a bit that like stay underground for a bit. I don't remember if they're called Morlocks or if that's the enemies that fight them. But anyway, it's this other.
Mutants. Yeah. I think the Morlocks. I think that's it. Yeah.
That's the vibe I got from his people, and not like weird monster things or whatever.
Yeah.
More or less, he kind of felt like if you remember The Incredibles, he felt like the
Underminer.
exactly what he felt like to me. But
well, I think that was. I feel like that was intentional. Almost maybe not necessarily on the part of Fantastic Four, but on the Incredibles. I feel like the Incredibles absolutely took Mole Man, because the Incredibles are very much a representation of Fantastic Four. If you think about it, you know, Mr. Incredible is supposed to be, you know, it has very similar powers to the Thing.
Yeah.
Elastigirl, Mr. Fantastic.
There's
the daughter, Violet. Violet has the similar powers as Sue Storm. The only difference is Dash with the super speed. But even then, Dash is very much the cocky, overconfident. Like I can do whatever, like I can do anything because I'm cool, that Johnny Storm has. So it's very the parallels are there.
Absolutely.
And so I feel like the Underminer was supposed to be a nod to Mole Man.
I could definitely see that.
And I feel like just so many people didn't get it in the moment at the time. And now that we've had Mole Man, and you literally see like the clip of him coming up out of the ground with the giant drill thing, and I'm surprised nobody in the theater went, "The Underminer!" You know?
Yeah, it very much felt like that. But it would have been cool to see a little bit more of him. And maybe we do, because we do the what's funny is the way it kind of got revealed officially. that's who's playing him was that got spoiled on the official prequel comic that came out either earlier this month or last month or whatever.
Okay.
Which is funny because there's a picture of Mole Man drawn, and it's drawn in a way it's like you can obviously tell that it's that actor.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
funny.
Well, it's kind of like all the fan, or not fan art, but all the artwork that came out just after they announced the cast for the Fantastic Four. Like that really that 60s style drawing of, and it's like, well, you can clearly tell that that's Pedro Pascal.
Right.
You can clearly tell, that is Joseph Quinn or
It
Vanessa Kirby, or
definitely in the same vein as that.
Yeah,
absolutely. But yeah, there's just one like I said, that's more of a smaller nitpick of we didn't need to, but I would have just liked to see that.
Yeah,
a little bit there in some of those scenes, but it didn't bother me too much. Now, let's talk about something that did bother me. And this is kind of like what really brought the movie down for me personally. I get why it didn't bother other people, but just for me, I was really underwhelmed with Galactus's demise. Let's put it that way. Galactus was portrayed, and I think he was hyped up very well throughout the movie, and going after Franklin and all that. What bothered me was the way those events happened. I feel like they should have made it feel a little better. Just for me, I wasn't a fan of. Well, okay, let's put it this way: Galactus is meant to be one of those most all-powerful entities, right, within the Marvel universe, just in general, right? Like he's up there with a bunch of those Marvel cosmic gods or whatever. Obviously, he's not quite the power level of a god, but he's like, at the end of the day, he's usually grouped up in there with them. Yeah, exactly. Like he's grouped up in there, even though he's not a god, but he's essentially is a god, So anyway, point is, you're talking about one of the most powerful beings, and what really bugged me was essentially. Obviously, not saying the other people didn't help. They the word I would say is assisted. And I understand the message with it behind the movie, and I still feel like they could have gotten this point across in some different way. But what really bugged me was that you're talking about one human being, Sue Storm, was able to essentially just beat him pretty much on her own. As is pretty much just her being able to push him back. Now, like I said, I understand the story points of like why everybody, or of why like it worked for people and why the meaning behind that scene, which I can respect. But to me, the idea of that is just like, okay, this one member of the Fantastic Four is pretty much the one who beat Galactus until Shia LaBeouf at the end there. And that was what really bothered me, is that it didn't feel like to me that the Fantastic Four. I mean, they had a fine sense of them working together, but it felt like it was Sue Storm doing all the work there for me. And the idea of them being able to just push Galactus like that. So, I know the way they presented it, it felt like Galactus, for the stature of him, there was too easy. Obviously. You could say that's a problem with a bunch of the other Marvel movies, but this one felt more so to me felt like that. And when you look at the original comic, what really helped turn the tide in the Battle of Galactus was like swatting them all like they're flies, even the Thing. What really helped them was the distraction of Silver Surfer, and not having Shia LaBeouf really involved in that fight at all until that one final hit was like, okay. I mean, it makes sense that she'd take the hit because I figured that they'd all be there, but like, I kind of wish that she would have been there more. I think my problem would have been fixed, and this is, like I said, this is definitely where it comes from. Very much a comic book person having these sort of problems. Is I think for me would have just fixed a lot more if they kind of lessened the amount of work Sue Storm did, and then actually had Shia LaBeouf more there at the end, and I think that would have fixed it for me.
I can agree with that. I feel like it would have been a very easy. I feel like the easiest thing they could have done was, because if you remember, Johnny basically goes to Shia LaBeouf and was like, "Help us, like please," like he begs her to help, and she's like, I can't, and then she leaves.
Yeah.
If they would have instead shown like Shalabal going to Galactus and trying to like sue for peace or whatever, and be like, listen, like he's just an innocent child, or whatever, and then have Galactus be like, swat her away, and then have her come in and do what she did. I feel like if they would have done something as simple as that, it would have taken 2 seconds. I think that would have really, because it almost felt like Johnny calling her by her name and reminding her of who she is and where she comes from and why she did what she did. It's almost like she went off into a dark corner somewhere and thought about it. Maybe had a good cry,
Sure. Yeah.
And then she was like,
okay. Yeah.
She's like, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, I quit. And So yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from with that. As far as the Sue Storm aspect of it, I feel like it was going to be hard to, unless they were going to do some like No Way Home Spider-Man, like where like they're all like swinging off each other and like working together in such tandem that it's almost like they're the same person or something. Unless they were going to try and do something like that, where it's like the Thing hits him and then Johnny blasts him with fire, and then Mr. Fantastic wraps his like body around his legs to do the whole like, Empire Strikes Back trip him thing, and then Sue Storm pushes him. If they would have done that, I think it would have worked.
You see, I think that's what I would have liked, because you see them all as like equals versus, to me, one person doing almost all their work there.
Right.
I think for me, it would have worked a lot better if they could have largely kept it the same, but when Sue starts pushing back, when that whole scene starts, start having Galactus come forward.
You think your attempts are going to do anything?
Yeah, well, like, start having the pushing back work for, like, maybe a step or two, and then Galactus gets his footing, and then starts coming towards, and then Shalabal comes in, and then they do their big final push towards in. I think that would have been the easiest way to push it. They just had Shalabal come in too late, I feel like, and I think that is the crux. The problem with it is if they just had Shalabal there earlier, I wouldn't have felt like too much work went with Sue Storm.
Right. The biggest issue I had, and again, I really didn't have a problem with it overall, but I would say the biggest issue I had was the fact that they had them working together as if this were their introductory film, as if they had not just spent the last 5 years being superheroes together and working together as superheroes, but instead, like, this was their origin film. The final fight felt like an origin film fight where they're learning how to fight together, and Sue Storm just kind of had to, like, pull up her big girl panties and do what had to be done.
Yeah.
When instead it should have been a show of the four of them working together to do what needed to be done.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was the one thing that they could have done better.
I could see that too. I didn't necessarily think of it that way, but I could definitely see that.
Because like you think about it, they've spent the last 5, at this point in the movie, they've spent 5 years working together as a team and bringing about pretty much world peace. Which speaking on that, that's a whole other Doctor Doom thing that
one of the big things there, Latveria. Yes,
Latveria. I very much felt like Leonardo DiCaprio in that movie, like
you know it, you got it. Yeah, absolutely.
Latveria. And they even had like the flag with the green and silver on it, and I was just like, yes.
Yeah, they gave some great teases there, and that's like the kind of world building that I love, and like that's the kind of world building I feel like Marvel's has really missed in a lot of their previous projects, of just fun nods like that. Like, do you remember like back when Winter Soldier came out, and like the moment somebody like Stephen Strange's name was dropped from Captain America, and seeing different buildings and stuff like in the background, great world building aspects like that. For the most part, I feel like we haven't really gotten stuff like that with Phase 4 and 5.
Yeah.
But this movie, even though it's on its own planet or own Earth, we got so much of that stuff of what really made those older Marvel movies feel special. And that's one of the things, like they nailed the world of it so well.
Oh yeah.
And so
Well, it's like
Man.
even if you go back as far as like the first Iron Man movie, the very
Yeah.
first Iron Man movie had the 10 rings in it.
Yeah, they had some
And it's
great world building from day
right.
one.
And it's interesting, like the first, I would, which one, which Iron Man was it that had, was it Iron Man 2 that had, oh, what was the dude's name that tried to like take over Tony Stark's legacy or something? And he like,
So 2 was
um,
the dude was with Whiplash, the dude with the electric whips and all that.
right.
3 was the
Justin
fake.
Justin Hammer. Justin Hammer is who I'm thinking
Oh,
of.
that was on the second one. Yes.
Yeah. So you had Justin Hammer in the second one with Whiplash, but then you have, so it's the third one I'm thinking of. I can't remember the dude's name, but the guy who hires the actor to play as like the 10 rings and the fake
Right. Yeah. Sure.
I can't think of his name, but anyway,
Trevor, whatever his
Trevor,
name is.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like they
Yeah.
set that up, and then I don't know. Did you ever see the short film that they did with him?
I've
Where,
meant
like,
to
he did-
watch that. Yeah.
It's so funny. It's so funny because it's literally him in prison talking about the like this role of a lifetime that he had, and then the real like criminal organization, the 10 Rings, the one that took Tony Stark in the first movie, kidnap him, break him out of prison, and they're basically like ready to put him to death for impersonating them. And he's just like, I just did a part, man. Like that's
So funny.
it's very like on the nose. Like, yeah, we know this was a, because I think a lot of people were upset with that movie, with the whole fake 10 rings thing. I think the Mandarin, that was the character's name, Mandarin.
Oh yes.
The that he plays. I think a lot of people, I was upset at the fake out.
Rightfully so.
Simply because, again, didn't read the comics much growing up, but one thing I did love as a kid was I think it was called Iron Man the Brave and the Bold or something like that. Or it was an animated TV show about like a teenage Tony Stark, and his parents died in like a plane crash or something.
There's one called
Armored Adventures. Armored
That's it.
Adventures.
Yes.
Yeah. Brave and the Bold is Batman.
I was about to say yes.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. Armored Adventures. Yeah. And it was one of the main villains of that show was the Mandarin, and like him trying to get the 10 rings. And like that was a big thing in the show, was like him trying to prevent the Mandarin from collecting the 10 rings. So I remember being really excited hearing that the Mandarin was going to be in this movie, because that was one of the villains that I grew up like, oh shit, he's going to get the 10 rings. And then it was a fake out, and I was just like, oh, okay. And then they like came back later on with that short, and they were like, hey, we know that you guys are mad about the whole fake Mandarin thing, so we're going to make it up to you by showing this guy who played him getting, kidnapped by the real 10 rings. And, which then you go into Shang-Chi, and it's just like, well,
they made up for it there in a regard. It doesn't necessarily fix the other problems with Iron Man 3, but that was a great movie. Anyway, but overall, Fantastic Four, though, I really liked it, despite my Galactus problem, where I just wish we could have gotten a little more out of Galactus, with his reputation of who he is. That was my big problem. And like I said, a big part of that is definitely just because of the big comic nerd I am. I've seen a lot of other people, not have that problem with me. I've really only seen like one other person who's a good friend of mine, like say the same random thing. I haven't really seen much other people bring that up. But a lot of times when I do bring it up to people, such as you were like, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Well, because at the end of the day, Galactus is this, cosmic entity that surpasses all understanding, and it's just like, no, get out of here.
Here's how much it bothered me is I think the movie, if they properly did that in fight up till the end there, it would have been an easy at the least 9 out of 10. I still really like it, but
Yeah.
it's probably lowered to like an 8, maybe 7.5, something around there, like.
Sure. I do remember walking out of the theater and feeling really excited that I finally got to see this movie that I was so hyped for. But I do remember feeling a little underwhelmed because the movie, I was so hyped for the movie that by the time it was over and like I had finally, I went to that movie theater to see the mid-credit scene. That was what I went to that theater for. That was what I paid for tickets for, was to see Doom on screen. That was what I
For 2
paid
seconds.
for 2 seconds. The rest of the movie, loved it. However, I
Yeah.
do remember feeling a little bit underwhelmed, like that's not how I thought it was going to go, and that's not a problem. Like I'm not, it's not. I'm not like a Star Wars fan where it's like, well, this isn't exactly how I thought it was going to be, so it's bad. It's like, no.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's very much like that was very different than what I was expecting.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I feel about it. And it feels very underwhelming because I was very much thinking like it was going to be more than it was.
One of the things that didn't help for the mid-credit, at least, for me was I remember reading ahead of time the Russos directed the scene. And I don't know if they directed the big one at the end of Thunderbolts, but Thunderbolts had a massive one that went on for like
the one
5 minutes.
The one at the end of Thunderbolts where they show the Fantastic Four ship was done on the Doomsday set.
Was that actually done by the Russos?
It was done. It was directed by the Russos, and it was done on the set of Doomsday.
So that even better helps my point of when we were told the Russos were doing this scene as well, because I read that ahead of time. I was expecting that we'd get something maybe bigger, because Thunderbolts, I feel like, kind of set that precedent in a way.
Yeah,
that maybe we get something bigger.
Thunderbolts. Now, mind you, I did not see Thunderbolts in the theater. I saw it in other ways, allegedly.
Allegedly.
But the version, the way that I watched it, did not have the scene. It did not have the mid-credit scene in it. It basically cuts off at the end of the movie.
Sure.
So I had to basically, what I know of that scene is what I've read online and like from like New Rock Stars and Everything Always and all these other YouTubers that I follow. But at the end of the day, first of all, it was very much a bigger post-credit scene than we've ever seen before. If I remember right, I believe they said it was longer than any other post-credit scene we've ever seen.
Absolutely.
Because most of the time, post-credit scenes, like, okay, Thanos, when he's like, fine, I'll do it myself.
Yeah, it was like the perfect quick 10-second thing.
Quick 10-second thing, and it's like, oh my god, it's Thanos, and
and when we did essentially get that with this,
right, and that was the same. That was the same thing with this. But then you look at Thunderbolts, and it was like a 5-minute long scene or something like that. It was like, they're discussing trademark, like being sued for trademark on the name of the new Avengers. It's like,
like it's
a very episode 1 of Star Wars, trade disputes.
I feel like Thunderbolts actually did set this precedent when Marvel's on a very short timer as well to actually set up Doomsday. Like Thunderbolts and this movie are really the only movies to set it up.
I genuinely was curious going into this if when we saw the mid-credit scene of Doom, if it was going to be Doom in his green cloak or in his white cloak, because
that'll be Secret Wars.
It will be. But the thing is like, okay, I need to get both runs, or I only know of 2. So
there's 2. Yes, there's 2 main ones.
I know there's 2 main ones. One's from like the 90s, I think, and the other one's from
80s.
Like 2015. Oh, okay, 80s, and the other one's from like 2015 or something like that.
So
I need to read those so that I can better understand what is happening, what they're pulling from anyway.
I will tell you the one that matters most is the one from 2015.
Okay.
I did a video actually breaking that down I did a comic episode over that a few months ago where we talked about that. and that is the big like inspiration that's going to be for it. There might be, I think there's going to be some elements potentially thrown into the mix from the original one, but it's going to be largely the other one.
So all I know about Secret Wars is that Doom basically destroys the multiverse and has a select few people from the multiverse in on this battle world. And eventually they overthrow him, and then Reed Richards, along with his children, Franklin and I can't remember the daughter's name. Valeria, right.
Important to say we didn't see her. I'll get to that in a moment. But yeah.
I do wonder if maybe in that post-credit scene, if maybe Sue was like pregnant with Valeria in that moment.
I feel like they would kind of have to be.
And they just didn't show it. Because it's like 5 years later, like Franklin's like 5 years old at this point. So you would feel like either she's just had the baby, which I feel like they would have shown her. They would have shown Valeria, or she's about to find out that she's pregnant again.
Yeah, I was doing some reading about Valeria right after, which is interesting. That because my thought was, and this was one of the misconceptions I had about, I guess Valeria's age related with Franklin's, was that I thought they were born really close to each other. Okay. I was wrong on that, because when I looked it up, it's a 3 to 5 year difference. But when I was walking out of the theater, I was thinking, wasn't Valeria meant to be born by this point? Well, not necessarily. Okay. Right. Now, when I was researching it still, even more so, was that that an important part of Valeria's story is that she was actually not born in the main universe. She was born in the it's called the hell is it called? The negative zone, is that what it's called? The place where Annihilus is from. Where is Annihilus from?
Oof, I'd have to look it up.
I know, I'm trying to remember what it is. Annihilus Marvel. Let me look here. It's gonna bug me. It might be called the negative zone, although like that could be the thing from Superman. See, now that I'm saying that sounds like the place from Superman, and so no, it is negative zone. I'm right. Okay, I was right, because Superman's the Phantom Zone. That's it. Anyway, point is though, she was born in the negative zone, which is like this whole alternate big dark dimension sort of place, and that's I think part of the big reason why the way she came out was kind of special, and so
I wonder if they're gonna tie in. If they're going to tie in Love and Thunder with that, because think about, I forget what they actually call it, but it's basically like where, it's where, what was his name? The Christian Bale's character in the movie,
Gore
the God Killer, where he was trying to get. It's like the end of the universe or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, the space beyond the universe, and it's almost like a void, like a space outside of space and time. I wonder if they're going to touch on that at all with Valeria and the negative zone, or whatever it's called. Like, I wonder if there's a connection, is what I'm saying. Or if they're going to try and force a connection within the MCU at least.
See, obviously, Valeria being a person... So here's a couple things, is... Because there's kind of two ways they're going to do about it. Is it like, are they going to force it into Doomsday and Secret Wars, or are they going to do it after? Because the problem, if they force it into these Avengers movies, I could feel that's too forced in, which I respect, giving her a proper story for her birth, especially a proper one in the negative zone. But if they do that, you're not going to have Valeria in Secret Wars, and she did play an important role in Secret Wars, but obviously they can always do things their own way, They did Infinity Gauntlet without Adam Warlock, so they can always take two players,
Right. Well, but also, like, isn't Valeria's whole thing, like, she doesn't actually have superpowers, but she's just, like, a mega genius?
Essentially, her powers are essentially that she's really smart. Yes.
Right. Like, she's not creating universes like Franklin is, but
Yeah.
She knows what needs to be done.
Mhm.
Because wasn't it like Franklin and Valeria had to work together to create these new universes, and then Mr. Fantastic basically just chucks them out into the void and like.
I'm not sure about that part specifically, but there is an iteration that I read where they come back because they were exploring all these pocket universes of sorts or mini dimensions that Franklin was creating, and they were exploring one after another, essentially, and then they come back, which is interesting.
One thing in this movie that I thought was really cool that they did was when she was still pregnant with him and she was able to make her belly invisible so that you could see him in her womb.
That was really cool.
That was such a cool
You
shot.
got to actually see Franklin.
That was such a cool effect.
I do like that they're showing that we're getting Franklin and that he is going to be a big part of the Avengers coming up, because that's an important part that I think will make Doom ultimately, hopefully, work. So you know, obviously, I'm hesitant on how things are coming about with it, but
if it were not for
we'll
the
see.
fact, if it weren't for the fact that you're right, Valeria is very important to what happens at the end of Secret Wars. If it weren't for the fact that I feel like anyway that we have to have Valeria Richards in some regard, I almost would have preferred it if Sue Storm would have stayed dead at the end of the movie. Almost. Simply because I knew when I realized that she was dead, I knew that she wasn't going to stay dead. And and it was like that. I do like that was how they showcased a little bit of Franklin's powers, because up until this point, Franklin Richards showed no powers whatsoever. I mean, that was that was a big thing throughout the movie. Is Reed Richards is like, I've tested him. He has nothing. Like, there's nothing. And Galactus is like, no, trust me, bro. Like,
yeah, like that's such a big thing. See, like I'm torn on that part because, you know, fake death scenes can go too far sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
And that was definitely one of them where it's like we knew he wouldn't do that, you know, or that
it was
she
very
wasn't gonna
much
die.
Yeah, it was very much like, okay, Franklin Richards is there. Franklin's there. He sees his mama. He's gonna reach out and touch her, and she's gonna be fine. And that's essentially what happened. They did stretch it out a little bit to make you almost think like it might not happen.
Right.
And then it does. Now, when she opens her eyes, I thought that was a very nice touch. That she opens her eyes and her eyes look like galaxies. Like it looks like there's galaxies and stars in her eyes, and then it fades out to her normal eyes.
Yeah.
And I almost wonder if there's going to be what I would love to see come from that in the future is seeing her have some like psychological effect from being dead and coming back, similar to how we see Tony Stark having those panic attacks in Iron Man 2 after the first Avengers movie, when he goes into space with a nuke and he doesn't know that he's going to come back, and then he falls back through the wormhole right at the last second. And it's like everything that he thought about protecting the Earth, and like now he realizes that, aliens are not only real but super powerful and can come and basically like, if we're not ready, can come and kick our ass. And it sent him spiraling. So I would love to see, at the very least, like, I hope that they show like she has like nightmares or something about what she saw in death, because like I feel like that's not really talked about enough in these movies where they have a death fake out, where it's like they die but they come back. It's like that would severely mess with anybody's psyche, I think.
Yeah, you bring a good point of like it really did work for Iron Man, and a lot of them I think are kind of just for shock value, you know, of like, are they going to make it or not?
Yeah,
you know, like the one for me that was too far, and a movie I absolutely love. Actually, my favorite Marvel movie post Endgame. Actually, I might even like it more than Endgame. It's how much I love it. Is Guardians 3. But I will absolutely agree. When you get to the point of Star-Lord's fake death out, it's like, come on. You maybe didn't need to go that far with that. If he wasn't actually going to die. It was definitely believable that he was going to die, but then they didn't, you know? So we'll see how it all goes. And supposedly we'll be back for Doomsday. So we'll see. There's a lot of exciting points of where everything can go on from. Bear actually brought up a good point here, saying Franklin would be interesting insertion for the MCU, considering he is beyond Omega level mutant in the comics. Absolutely.
That's another thing going into the mutant saga. If we have Franklin Richards in with the mutant saga, I feel like I don't know how that's going to work, because like Franklin being as powerful as he is, I feel like at some point Magneto at the very least is going to try and be like, hey kid, like come here,
Yeah.
Hey, kid. You know, like I want to tell you something, come here.
Yeah, it's a really interesting aspect.
I got free Robux.
It's an interesting aspect in the comics, because it's like, is Franklin really a mutant? You know, so
True.
yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. There's a bunch of things that'll happen.
Isn't there a version, now that I think about it, isn't there a version of Galactus that is just Franklin Richards?
There might be something like that. I'm not familiar.
I
That sounds vaguely.
I think I remember leading up to it, there were so many like
vaguely. I vaguely remember hearing something about that, so I don't know.
Yeah, I remember vaguely hearing that there was some iteration of Galactus that was literally just Franklin Richards. like he it's almost like Franklin Richards is a constant throughout the universes, and so it's like Galactus survived the 6th iteration of the universe, dying, and then in the seventh iteration of the universe is Franklin Richards, and so Franklin Richards is the one to survive the 7th iteration, dying, and then he's Galactus for the next iteration or something like that.
Yeah,
in those lines. I don't know how I would feel about. Well, that could be how they do Noir and Rad.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see, but
I don't know. I do like though that they kept Galactus alive to keep that open somewhere.
Yeah,
so we'll see. And like I said, I think there's a bunch of ways that they can bring him in still easily with not killing him, because I was really concerned that things weren't going to happen the way they did. But overall, I was definitely very happy with the movie. Other than my big thing at the end, like I said, I'd probably give it I'll just say an 8 out of 10. I'd say so. It's really good. I did really enjoy it.
Yeah, I'd say 8, maybe 8. I would say 8.5 for me.
Sure.
Definitely, I'm definitely, when it comes to Marvel, Spider-Man is that's my thing.
Yeah,
I love Spider-Man because Spider-Man was the first comic book character that I ever saw on the big screen. My dad took me to see the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man in the theaters when I was a kid. And I just remember feeling so blown away. I remember I used to climb over like golf carts and say that I was Spider-Man. I was climbing up on the roofs and stuff, and like I wanted to be Spider-Man. I had the first like PlayStation 1 demo game where it was like all the assets were just green, like boxes, like all the buildings were just these big green boxes, and you had Spider-Man, and then you had a bunch of thugs, and you swung around to these different rooftops and you beat up a bunch of thugs, and that was the game.
That's funny.
So like Spider-Man is absolutely the one character that I will always get hyped for. So when I tell you that Brand New Day is going to be one of my favorite movies that come out next year, and that's including with Doomsday.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, Doctor Doom, I would say, is my second favorite character in the Marvel universe.
He's such a great character.
He's so well done, because he's so over the top, and like he is almost the perfect villain.
Oh yeah, he is.
His only weakness is his pride.
Yeah.
And the only thing that stops him from being the best is the fact that he knows deep down in his heart of hearts that no matter what he does, no matter what good he does for the world, because don't get it twisted, Doom may be a villain, but he has done a lot of good for the world.
He's such a great character.
He
Absolutely.
Really is.
I love this. There's this line I saw. It's bad that I don't remember if it was part of a comic or if it was or like that I was actually reading, because I did recently read through a Doctor Doom miniseries leading up to Sunday's Comic Den episode. Go check that out on Sunday, where we're talking about top 10 Doctor Doom stories. But there's this one thing where I was reading about where like Doctor Doom's like, even gods are beneath me, and I was just like, you know, lines like that just perfectly shows how Doctor Doom feels about everything, and it's like I love that line.
It's the same. That feels like the same energy as Hulk saying "puny god."
Yeah.
Same energy.
It just works so well for
Doom. But back to what I was saying. His one weakness is no matter what he does, no matter how well he does it, no matter the good he does for the world, in his heart of hearts, in the back of his mind, he knows Reed Richards would have done it better.
Right.
And that is the one thing that gets to him, is that Reed Richards will always be slightly better than him in some aspect, even if Doom outsmarts him every now and again.
Yeah.
Eventually, Reed is going to come back and find some way to turn it around.
Yeah, well, like Reed's like the smartest person on Earth, right? I think he's the smartest. So
yeah, he's touted as being the smartest man alive.
Yeah.
That being said, it's so funny that if Doom just took that pride that he has, because that's the other thing, his pride stops him from working with Reed. If Doom worked with Reed Richards together and they could like come to an understanding of how things need to work, the world would be a utopia. There would be no sickness. There would be no starving. There would be no nobody would want for anything, because they're literally the two best minds in the world.
Absolutely.
And like Doom has already shown that he can create a utopia in Latveria.
Yeah.
You know, the people outside of Latveria look at Latveria and like, oh my God, you guys don't have any freedoms, and you guys aren't able to do, if you say something bad about Victor Von Doom, you're going to get severely punished for it. It's like, well, yeah, but also I don't have to worry about where my next meal's coming from.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about whether or not I'm going to be able to eat. I don't have to worry about if my family's going to be able to eat.
Sure.
Everything that my needs are met. And for the most part, Latvians love Victor Von Doom. Like when I remember watching a video, I want to say it was Everything Always, where they talk about they talk about Doom more in depth, and they talked about when Doom was forcibly removed from Latveria, and like they basically, like, Doom was forced to give up his throne or whatever, and like Latvians suffered because of it. Like it was almost like the U.S. government came in and did what they do and put their own ruler there and tried to put democracy in place. And
you know what's funny is I think I've read this comic, but I don't remember which it is.
Right. And it's like, the people were like, yeah, democracy is great and all, but we were way better off under Victor Von Doom. So
I've read so many Doctor Doom stories together that like a lot of them I've blended in together for me.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm kind of like iffy. I'm like, I don't remember exactly which that is, but that sounds very familiar.
Now, I've not seen Ironheart yet. I've not watched the Ironheart show yet, but I do know that Mephisto is like mentioned or like shown in that. I wonder if they're going to flesh out the whole Doctor Doom and Mephisto thing with like his mother.
We'll see. I don't know how they would, since it's on different Earths, but we'll see.
Yeah, you're right.
But there's a bunch of great stuff there. But yeah. Anyway, we had a great conversation here, though. This went on a lot longer than I thought it would. There's been
I'm looking at the time. I went, oh,
yeah. And so, but yeah, I think it's about time to wrap this up. So, thank you so much for coming by. We had a great conversation, not just about Fantastic Four, but also the MCU in general. And so there's lots of great stuff there. There's a lot of stuff here. Thank you all, everybody, so much who stuck by here. Thank you, Bear. Thank you, any lurkers and all that. Do you have anything that you specifically want to shout out? Or?
Shout out, not necessarily.
No? Go check out Cam and Focus. There we go.
Yeah, there we go. Go check out Cam and Focus.
So that's how we know each other.
I'll be over there again eventually.
Yeah. So go check them out.
If they ever decide to discuss Harry Potter, I'm gonna be there. I have so much like encyclopedic knowledge of that franchise that it's borderline insane. But
welcome in, Austin at the end. I'm not lurking, I swear. Good to see you here too. But yes, be sure to go check out the Comic Den this Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern, where we're going to be talking about the top 10 Doctor Doom stories. So lots of great Doctor Doom stuff that I can't wait to get into there. Been doing some Doctor Doom reading and stuff, and so it'll be awesome to get into that, as we're talking about such a great villain. A bunch of those points are going to probably be reiterated on Sunday, as we are just celebrating a more topical episode and not, story arc focused like at least our last 4 or 5 episodes have been. So we'll be delving into all that, which should be fun. So yeah, be sure to check that out Sunday, the Comic Den, as well as all the other fun stuff here on the Dingus Den. Stay tuned for all that fun stuff. I thank you all so much for hanging out and sticking around. Until next time, see you all here on the Dingus Den. Laters, everybody. Bye. There.